for the speakers watching who aren't yet working with Interview Connections, maybe they met us at NSA and they're thinking about like doing podcast guesting. Can you help educate them on why podcast guesting is a really important part of speaking?
Yeah, look, it's super important. And I would love to kick off actually from a story from someone you and I both know through the mastermind group, which was Eleanor. And Eleanor's entire speaking career, which is highly paid, comes from her podcast, right? And from being on a podcast guest on other people's things. And that was when we first all met, you were already with you had already started Interview Connections, but it was a conversation with her over dinner one night where that just blew my mind. Her entire speaking career was off the back of her own podcast and podcast guesting. And she's highly paid and in demand, right? And she's a rock star, let's be honest. She's an absolute rock star. But that was the first time that I went, whoa. And then, like, obviously you were part of the mastermind with Margie. And I was like, okay, so there's a whole business booking guest. Like, for someone from Australia, this was kind of mind-blowing, right? But now it's part of what I tell people they must do to build the muscle, because you can't become a good speaker unless you're actually in the arena, right? You've got to, it doesn't matter how polished you are. It doesn't matter how much you've rehearsed. It doesn't matter. You don't understand where audiences are going to fall in love with you, where audiences are going to shun you, where audiences are going to laugh, where audiences are going to, until you're in the arena. And you can get something 80% right as a speaker, but the rest of it has to happen in the arena. So as an emerging and aspiring speaker, there's two parts where we use podcast guesting: as you're emerging and aspiring, and when you want to level up. So we'll go with the first one, emerging and aspiring. Why it matters is because it gives you the opportunity to be in the arena without actually having to take the spear to the heart when you're early in the stages, right? So you can build muscle, you can hone your message, you can start to understand what's landing, what's not. You can listen to the questions from the podcast host, because after the first couple of questions, they'll just go wherever they want to go. So you can really start to understand what's landing, and you can just continually tweak your actual main presentation. The other thing is that it is a place where you learn to truly be in service to the audience, because if you're not truly in service to the audience and the host, nothing happens from appearing on those podcast episodes. And you have to be in service to an audience when you're speaking. You know, I've already talked about quite a bit about it. And I say to emerging and aspiring speakers, just get 20 to 50 podcasts as far as you can, minimum of 20, preferably 50, as fast as you can, right? Really ramp it up, because the faster you go, the more momentum you get, the more people get to know you, the more people get to understand you. And it's amazing what happens. I did a podcast episode sometime last year with On Air with Allah, right? In the last 3 weeks, so it was 12 months ago, in the last 3 weeks, I've had 2 people join my programs from the US, having heard that episode in the last 3 weeks, right? Now, part of that is because Allah's own following. So if you're a guest on that podcast host show, then you have instant credibility because that host is giving you the time. So you really have to show up in these things. You really have to be clear in your messaging, and you really have to, and that all helps a speaker. And the more you speak out loud, because so many people say, you know, I'm rehearsing it, I'm polishing, I'm like, great. Have you had contact with the enemy yet? Right? You've got to
contact with the enemy.
Because you've got to get the feedback, right? And things that sound amazing to you. You might be on a podcast and you don't live or die in a podcast, but you do live or die on a paid stage.
Yeah.
Right. And so take the opportunity and the advantage to get really, really good. We never used to have this opportunity. Like, you literally had to practice in front of your teddy bears and your puppy dogs and then stand on stage and hope like heck it worked. Right? Now we have this amazing opportunity. So they're the things that we tell our emerging speakers. Then we tell the same thing for our speakers that want to level up. So they've got new content, they want a bigger audience, they want bigger fees, they've got a book being launched. And I know this, what I first learned from you guys was a book launch tour by podcast is one of the best things you can do. When you want to level up or you've got something you want to get to market, then go hard again. And then settle back into the rhythm. I think Interview Connections, you recommend sort of 1 a week, don't you? So
yeah, and we've really evolved too with just like observing what works with different clients. So we have 3 different packages, 24, 32, 48 bookings. And then we work with the client on the pace at which those get booked. Because if someone has a book launch or you want to get that practice and you want to go as fast as possible, like, let's work on that, right? If you get a tour, if you need to just get like some steady, slow burn visibility, then it might be like 2 to 4 a month. So yeah.
And that's the thing. Like you you need to maintain a certain rhythm if it's part of your strategy, but there are times when you need to really amplify it. And to be honest, it's fun.
It is fun.
Like I can't think of any better way to build your muscle speaking than by podcast guesting, because it's fun. You meet incredible people, right?
Yeah.
And you don't live or die by the episode. Whereas sometimes when you stand on a stage, you really do live or die by your performance in that moment.